Hello. Today I'll be showing you a brief overview of the backend of Rentware. Backend is your working office of Rentware. This is where you can manage, you can see, you can create some orders, some manual orders. You can change your settings, add new inventory, get some reports, change any of the settings that you need, change your booking flow, and so on. So this is your working office, the backside of Rentware. And this is only accessible to the people who are the ones renting out the items and not your customers. So when you first log into Rentware, this is the page that you see. This is the overall, small little dashboard that just gives you an overview of what's happening in your day. So on the left-hand side, you can see if there are any orders starting today. If there are, you see like a brief overview of it. If you click on it, of course, then it takes you to the detail view, but otherwise you just get like a brief overview of what's happening. Same with the orders that are ending or are late or are still open reservations. Then down here you have a discovery. This is where you can find more or less tutorials or some articles on how to use Rentware. You can see some practices, what updates we're having, and so on and so forth. And you have a little bar here where you can also create tasks for yourself. On the overview page, you can also see these upcoming orders right up here, and you can also click here to start creating a new manual order. I'll be showing you again, this is also possible in other spots in Rentware, but this is one of the places where you can start creating a manual order. I'm just going to go back to our dashboard. Then we have this help section here. This is not where you can find articles, but this is where you can actually directly reach us. So there's a phone number, an email address, and your account ID for us to be able to identify your account. And then on the right-hand side, you can see some updates. So if we launch a new feature or some fix, then you can see what exactly happened described on your little sidebar right here. And you can, of course, flip through the different updates. And then down here you can see your inventory, how many items are available at the moment, and a little weather review. The second point that we have here is our disposition. The disposition is a graphical view of all of your orders, and it is quite an useful one. So in this case, this is a test account, of course, nothing real. I have 3 of the Porsche Taycans and 1 of the Tesla models. So as you can see, I can see my orders as these little bars right here. I am very zoomed in right now, so I'm seeing my next 24 hours, but I can also zoom out to see my next 7 days. I can zoom out to 14 days, 30, and so on. If you have multiple rental locations, you can also filter these. You can say, I don't want to see all of my locations. I want to see just the one. You can filter by tags as well. So if you only want to see your extras or your main objects, or if you have any other tags, you can also see those. If you zoom back in, you can see that there are these like gray areas, which indicate that these are the closing times of the shop. And you can see them right here as well. But you can also, if you don't want to be seeing that, you can also just kind of remove them. And you can also filter which orders you want to be seeing. So if you want to be seeing all of the status, or if you want to be only seeing, let's say, the ones that are ready or the ones that are blocked. So you have quite a few filter options here. And you can also always enter the orders from right here. You can click on details, and this will take you to the detail view, and you can technically also create orders here by just double clicking and starting to create an order over here. If you click on create order, this will then take you to the detail page where you can fill out the customer information and so on and so forth. When I'm saying manual orders, I mean orders that don't come over your website, over the widgets that are integrated, but rather somebody calling you, somebody emailing you and wanting a personal offer or wanting a more customized order experience. So this is where you see all of your orders in more of a graphical form. Now, this is not the only place where you can see this. You also have an orders list. Now, this is a table form of the same information that we were just looking at. Here you can see all of your orders, but in a table form. Also a very filterable and adjustable interface. You can, on the top right hand side, you have a bunch of filters, so you can filter by delivery end date, by pickup dates, by order dates, by location, state, and which columns you want to be seeing. Because if you scroll to the right, there's quite a few of information. pieces of information scattered there. And you can also download this as a CSV, but if you just don't need all of this information, you can also just filter and, for example, turn off the extra items or something. When you want to be creating a new manual order, this is also another point where you can create one just by clicking the top right corner to add. And then here you have the search bar. You can search by the customer, the order number, or the item that was booked. So if I, for example, look for my Tesla model, I will be able to see all of the orders that are with that model. Or if I want to look for my fake customers, let's say Max Smith, I will be able to see all of his orders. And of course, I can also look by the order number. Once you click on an order, you are taken to the detail view where you can see what was booked for how long and who was the customer, how much was paid, how much needs to be returned, and so on and so forth. So this is a view where you can see all of your orders, but in a table form, and you can also add new ones. Now, Rentware also supports the purchasing of gift cards. So if you have that enabled, which it isn't in this specific system, you can also see those right here. And if there are any invoices generated in the system, you can also see them right here. The next section down here is the inventory. This is where you have some segments on the top. These are user defined, so you can create more or subtract more or have as many as you want, basically. Here I just have them divided by main objects, some extras, and some other. So for example, the security deposit. This is where you will see all of your items. You can create new items on the top right corner, and there are quite a few different types of items that you can be creating in Rentware. There are the normal rental items that have just a physical amount, and they are the typical item that you will use when renting out with Rentware. Then you have the bundles where you can put multiple rental objects together in one packet and give your customers a new option, maybe with some sort of a discount to use. And then you have rental with variations. So this would be used for something like, for example, helmets, where you have one and the same product with one and the same price, but there are different options to choose from, and they're actually important. So for example, for helmets, you will be choosing from different sizes. So you can create a helmet that comes in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, and have the customer choose it when they're checking out. Then we have the deposit items. The deposit items are exactly what they say they are. They're the security deposit items that need to be created as such because Rentware treats them differently. So for example, if you cause a damage on an item, that will be subtracted from your security deposit. And Rentware needs to know that that specific item is meant to be a security deposit. Then we have infinite services, so things like cleaning fees, something that doesn't have a physical amount, also in here. And then we have percentage items, which are often used for insurance policies. If you have an item that does not have a set price, but rather the price gets calculated out of the value of their cart. So this is the inventory section. Each of the item has also a detail view. Of course, you can upload pictures, you can have your article names, location, segment, details all put in here. And of course, you can have multiple of the same items and they can have their own little names, and you can also give them their license plates right here. I just didn't for the specific account. On the right hand side, you can have some availability rules. These are used for some very edgy cases where not all of your items have the same rules as to how they can be rented out. So for example, some of your items, for example, have a lead time of 3 days, some others have a lead time of 5 days. That is something that can be set up right here. Then we have the customer's department. So this will keep a record of all of your customers. And if you go into a customer, you can see all of the orders that they have done so far, their information, and any invoices that are connected to this customer. Also, this can be downloaded as a CSV file, and you can of course add manual customers or search by the customers. An important note about this would be that if you're in your orders list or basically anywhere else and you're creating a new order, you're of course able to look through your list of saved customers, search through them, and you do not have to type up the details every single time. Then we have the discount codes. So if you are doing some sort of a discount week, for example, you're having a camper rental, for example, and at the beginning of the year, in order to gather some orders, you want to do a early bird special where people who book in January get 10% off, and you want to create a code for that. You are able to do so right here. So for example, here I've created a early bird special of 10%. Sorry, early bird special. It's a discount of 10% that can be used 10 times. You can create, of course, more. You can create the voucher code yourself, or if you leave it blank, you will be able to see what kind of code Rentware generates for it automatically. You can give it an amount, either in euros or in percentages. And then you can also choose how often this voucher code can be used and till when it is valid. The validity can be somehow limited to both when the actual order is being taken or when the actual rental happens. One below that, we have the reports. The reports give you a bit of an overview of how your business is doing. These are some normal statistics that you might need. So for example, this very first one, if I choose the entire month, it will show you which one of my cars have been booked, for how many hours, how many orders were that, how much revenue did it create, and so on and so forth. And there are a bunch of different reports like that. Most used ones would probably be the date of revenue and date of payments ones. Of course, for all of these, you can also download the CSV files and then manipulate and change them in Excel files. I'm thinking if there's anything else important here. Yeah, of course you can filter by date, location, and you can filter by your dates. You can also change what you mean by filtering by date, if you mean the rental end date, the delivery date, or when the order was created. And you can also filter out some 0 rows. And in payments, you get a bit more information about, let me just go back a little bit more, about what kind of payment methods were used and when. We will get into these revenue accounts in a second once we get to the settings. But basically, it is important to know that these reports are here and, of course, can be downloaded as a CSV file. Now, moving on to the settings, this is where most of your important stuff will be set up. But these are the things that you kind of set up once and then you let it be. The first one that you see here is the My Account settings. This is where you can see your name and you can see which language you want the backend to be in. You can change your password. But yeah, you can change the language of the backend right here. This is not to be confused with the language that your widgets and or your website will be in, because those can be two completely different languages, or your website can have more languages than your backend has, of course. Then moving on to the website integration. Here you have a small little introduction that basically explains how you would be able to introduce widgets into your website, just a small little tutorial. And then here you have the widget configurator. This is a live, like an actual version of the widgets. So if you choose the search widget, you will be able to see the actual search widget fully functional. You can go through the checkout, you can actually check out, you can create an order through here. But this gives you the possibility of, before you put it on your website, to test the widgets thoroughly. As you may know, there are two different kinds of widgets. Overall, just an umbrella term. There are many different differences between each of them, but overall there are two different important kinds, which are the group search and the booking calendar widgets. And here you have a bunch of settings where you can change the colors, change the parameters, change how the card looks, or what languages it is in, or what colors the buttons have, and so on and so forth. So you have all of the possibilities right here, and then you have the shortcodes to add them to your website right down here. Now, this of course does not apply if you have a Wix website. For the Wix website, there's a different kind of integration flow, which is also very simple, maybe even simpler than this. Then we have a small little tracking section where you can set up some of your Google Analytics and Meta Facebook tracking. And then we're moving on to the actual booking flow. So the booking flow in Rentware are the steps that you go through before you get to the the payment step. So you choose your main item, you choose your extras. In this case, we have a shipping step, a contact data step, and a payment step. This flow can be as long or as short as you would desire. You can add some special data forms that you can create right here. So for example, I created a driver's license number custom form that you can choose what the fields are and what kind of input they take, and you can also integrate this within your step. So I can add a new data step and choose that data step to be my driver's license number step. So if our contact data one, which is a pretty standard one where you just ask your customer for first name, last name, their invoice address and their shipping address and so on and so forth, is not enough and you just require more information from your customers, it is absolutely possible to create custom data forms and just integrate those into your booking flow. Then we move on to the shipping option of this. You can set up some, if you have a business that actually delivers the goods that you're renting out, you can set up for how much. The price can be fixed price, a distance-based price, or a weight price, and you can give the customer an option of choosing whether they want to pick up the items or if they want them delivered. Now, this is, again, a very short overview. There are also just a lot more possibilities that you can do with shipping, just in a very short overview fashion. That's all I'm going to say about shipping. But should you have some more complicated logic about shipping, please feel free to reach out to us because there's quite a lot that you can do about it. Same with the prices. I did not go through how you create an item and set up the prices in detail in this overview because it is meant as an overview, but also a lot of creative freedom is allowed there. Then you have the picker settings right here. These are the settings that are responsible for how your customers will be choosing their date range and time range for their order. So is it single day orders or multiple days? Should they be able to choose their time of their pickup, or are there just set times and they should only be able to choose dates? Is it a fixed duration rental where you say you can either rent for 1 month, 2 months, 2 weeks, or you have basically predetermined slots that they can be renting out for? And some general search filters that you can be changing. And down here we have a small little section for settings for the gift cards that can be sold over the website. The gift cards also get their own little widget. That's why the code snippet is here. But you can also give it a description, a name, how long it expires, and what kind of amounts it can be allowed in. And of course, it has a little section for the accounting. So in case you need to have some accounting settings set up for the gift cards, you can find those right here. Then we move on to the customer communication. And the first point in the customer communication are the email templates. So there are quite a few ways of communicating with your customers over Rentware. One of the main ones are the email templates. These are the emails that go out automatically when an event is triggered in Rentware. So say when a customer finishes setting up an order, they get a confirmation email, of course, if you have set it up so. And there are, for example, this is a template for a confirmation email. And as you can see, it has a couple of placeholders right here. There's a whole list of the placeholders. These basically just snatch information from the order or from the backend and put it into the email. So for example, right here where it says customer full name, had a person with the name Max Mustermann booked it, it would say, Max Mustermann, we have received your booking, we are pleased to you, blah, blah. So these are very useful. You can make the emails as custom as you would like. And of course, there's not just the confirmation email that is here, but there are the invoice emails, cancellation, contract, gift card, pickup protocol, completion protocol. There are quite a few. So if you need anything at all, you will most likely be able to find it here. As you can see, most of the emails have this little banner on the top, which is there for aesthetic purposes, you could say it so. You can upload your company logo here or a pretty picture of your inventory, and this will basically appear over your email when it's sent to your customers to make it appear a bit more friendly. The next point in your settings will be the email forwarding settings. So you can create a channel where you can give the channel a name and create choose which kinds of messages you would like to get copies of. So if the customer gets an order confirmation and you want to have a copy of that in your email as well, you can choose that. You can choose this for all sorts of emails that are outgoing from Rentware, so you can make sure that everybody's getting the right information, and then you put in the subjects. You can also have multiple channels and divide them by categories. So you can also say that let's say that for the Porsche you want one person to be notified, and then create a different channel for the Tesla, for example, where a different person gets notified. But basically this is a communication channel for you, so you make sure that you always know when new orders are coming in. As next, we have the documents. This is where the templates for all your documents are stored. So you can drop this down and you can see what all different kinds of documents there are. You see a little preview here. You can add an intro text, and you can change some settings about what parts, what details of your inventory list gets shown on these documents. And then you can also create your invoice numbering right here. You can of course upload your logo so that the document is customized to your business, and you can create the documents as well as the emails actually in different languages, of course. When we're speaking of languages, it's important to also consider this setting right here. It's the region settings. This is where you will put in which languages you would like your front end to work in. So in this case, this account just has English from United States. But if I wanted to have, for example, also a German website and use the German widgets, I would be able to add it right here. And then you can choose a default language that the widget will default to, but you can have multiple languages in one account. This is also where you set up all of the other basic business stuff, like which measurement units you use, which time zone you're in, which currency you have, and of course the tax rates. You can have multiple tax rates because we understand that there are items that come with different tax rates in the rentals. And then down here you just have some security settings where you can choose how long of an inactivity period triggers a timeout. Then onto the general settings, this is where you can create the segments for the inventory list. So these segments I mentioned earlier, they're editable, and this is exactly where you can edit them. And then down here you have a very big accounting section where you can give the revenue account numbers for your bookkeeping and for your accounting. So if you have different sorts of revenue accounts, this is where you would set your accounting up so that when you're pulling reports from this tab that we looked at earlier, that your references and revenue accounts are all correct. Then down here you have the locations. So this specific account only has the one location, but you can of course have multiple rental locations. And also you can have not just the rental location, but you can also have the office location, which is then just your invoice address, and the actual rental may be somewhere else. You have a lot of flexibility. This is also where you set up your opening times. This is a very basic view of what an opening time template can look like, but you can also have slots. You can make one of these days closed. You can have different time ranges during the days. You can put in some midday breaks. So with the opening times, you can be very, very creative. You can also in advance add some exceptions. So if you know that your business is closed over Christmas or something similar, you will be able to set that up right here. Then we move on to the prices, and prices has two little subpoints. One is display format. So if you want your prices to be put in and displayed in gross or net, and if you want the widget to show the entire sum that the customer has to pay or the per day price, so just some display formats right here. And then you have the possibility of creating some price templates right here. I have this one created right here, and you can clone these, you can duplicate them, and then you can add them to the items. So if you have a lot of items that have very similar pricings, you do not have to create the pricing rules each and every time again, but you can just create templates and reuse them on multiple items. Moving on to payment, this is where you set up your payment settings. So Rentware differentiates between two different kinds of payments. We call them online and offline payments. Online payments are the ones that are actually processed through the Rentware system. We have two very big providers. It's Stripe and PayPal that enable you to have Google Pay, Apple Pay, credit card payments, Amazon Pay, Zapa payments, PayPal, of course, and all the different payment methods that come with PayPal Checkout and Stripe Express. So quite a few. If you do the integration right here, you'll able to use all of these online payment methods, but you can also have it so that you maybe gather some payments on site instead of online, and those are the offline methods, which you can also choose from right here, so that when you're entering the payment in the Rentware system, you will be able to choose the correct payment method. And in the middle of these two, you have the split payment options. So if you would like to give your customers an option to first, let's say, do a down payment of 20% if they're booking very far in advance, and then pay the rest of it either before the order starts or on site, you will be able to set that something like that up right here. There are a bunch of different possibilities that you can go with this. Some of our customers even have multiple different choices that their customers can make. They allow deposits online and offline, so it really gives your end customer a lot of flexibility on how they want to be paying. Then we have the handover flow. So when an order is created in Rentware, obviously when it gets picked up and when it gets dropped off, you have some actions that you can do. These are just like the default these are the default tasks that you can have in a pickup or a drop-off flow. So the damages, open payments, checking items conditions, signing on it being picked up or dropped off, all very default stuff that you can either have optional, require, or you can hide completely. And of course, you can add your own custom tasks. There is even more to customizing your handover and drop-off flow, which you can usually set up in your inventory. So each of the inventory items has under specs the protocol configuration point, where you can also set up article-specific tasks that need to be done on pickup or drop-off. You can create checkboxes, you can create document upload fields. So the handover and drop-off flow are very, very customizable, as well as through this as through the configuration of the protocols in the items. Down here we have some miscellaneous settings. So you have the users and roles. As you can know, in Rentware you can have a lot of users. And each of the users can have a role. So both of these users right here are just admins, but you can create new roles where you basically give them a name. So let's call this maybe a coworker. And then you can go through all of the rights in Rentware, and you can either check some on or off. And then if a user is assigned this role, their rights will be reflecting whatever is checked in here. So if I don't want one of my coworkers to be going through the reports, I can disable it from here. Then we have a set of integrations. So we have an integration with a channel manager and with Safdesk. This channel manager enables you to be able to list, if you are, for example, renting out a holiday home, to list your item not only on Rentware but also on Airbnb, Booking, and other platforms, and it will sync the orders so you don't get overbookings. And then Safdesk is just an accounting tool that you can also use directly through Rentware. Then we have some translations. So if you're looking at your front end, at your widgets, and some of the words are not appealing or the wording is wrong for you, this is usually where you will be able to change basically anything in the front end. And in the end, the last one, you have the data protection. Since we do have a lot of customer data, this is where you can set up when this data should be deleted or anonymized. So that was a brief, small overview of the Rentware backend. Obviously, I didn't go into too much detail into all of the settings, but it was just a brief overview of what's all possible. If you should have any other questions, you can always reach us at support@rentware.com. Thank you.